I run my fingers over the engraved nameplate on my desk. Grace Harper, lead engineer. The brass is cool against my skin, its edges sharp enough to bite if I press too hard. 6 years of late nights, of coffee gone cold while I pored over blueprints, distilled into those 2 words. Sunlight filters through the thrift store curtain I hung over the single window, casting a soft grid across the sage-green walls I painted last spring. My office smells faintly of wood polish from the desk I sanded and stained myself. A thrift find I wrestled into my hatchback 2 summers ago. It's small, this space, but every inch is mine. The project proposal sits finished on my laptop screen, a dense grid of numbers and diagrams that took 4 months to perfect. I lean back in my chair, the creak of its springs a quiet applause. If the board approves it tomorrow, I'll have a corner office by next year. My name on a door instead of a desk. Pride swells in my chest, warm and unfamiliar, like a guest I don't quite know how to entertain. I imagine the call I'll make to my parents tonight, the way I'll say, "It's a big step," hoping for once they'll hear me. But the warmth curdles as I picture their dining room, the faded floral wallpaper, the chandelier missing 2 bulbs. Mom will be fussing over the roast, her lavender perfume clinging to the air, while Dad flips through his newspaper. Ethan will burst in late, phone in hand, grinning about his latest photography gig. 10,000 followers now, he'll say, and they'll crowd around him like he's splitting the atom, not snapping filters over sunsets. My proposal, my promotion, they'll dissolve into the background hum of their adoration for him. I trace the nameplate again, the letters grounding me. This is real. I built this. Not with charm or borrowed luck, but with equations I solved while the world slept. A memory flickers. Me at 16, hunched over a science fair robot, soldering wires until my fingers blistered. First place, a blue ribbon I clutched all the way home. Mom glanced at it, said, "Nice, Gracie," then hung Ethan's soccer trophy on the mantel instead. I hid the ribbon in my sock drawer that night. The clock ticks past 5. I shut my laptop, the screen's glow fading like a held breath released. Tonight, I'll walk into their house with this victory tucked under my arm, hoping they'll see it, see me. But deep down, I know the weight of my name won't register against the flash of Ethan's. I grab my keys, the jingle sharp in the quiet, and step into the hall. The door clicks shut behind me, a sound too small to echo. I smooth the linen tablecloth across my parents' dining table, its crisp edges a gift I gave them last Christmas. The fabric catches on a callus I earned drafting blueprints, a reminder of the hours I've poured into my work. The room smells of roast chicken and Mom's lavender perfume, a cloying mix that sticks to the back of my throat. Faded floral wallpaper peels at the corners, and the chandelier flickers, 2 bulbs dark like missing teeth. I set out the plates, each clink a small claim to this space, though it's never felt like mine. Mom, Linda, bustles in from the kitchen, her apron streaked with gravy. "Grace, move those napkins," she says, eyes sliding past me to the front door. It swings open, and Ethan strides in, all 28 years of him radiating that effortless glow I've never mastered. His phone's already out, thumb scrolling. 10,000 followers now, he announces, voice bright as a spotlight. Linda's face ignites, a smile I've chased since I was a kid. "Oh, Ethan, that's incredible!" she exclaims, abandoning her spoon to rush over. Dad, Tom, looks up from his newspaper, his grunt of approval a rare sound. I slide into my seat, fork cold in my hand. "I finished my proposal today," I say, keeping my tone even. "It's going to the board tomorrow, could mean a corner office by next year." Linda glances over, her nod distracted. "That's nice, Grace," Tom mutters. "Good job." But his eyes are back on Ethan's screen. Ethan cuts in. "Got a viral shoot last week. Some brand's paying me to do their campaign." Linda claps her hands, and Tom leans closer, their laughter a wall I can't breach. My fork scrapes the plate. The sound lost in their chatter, I chew slowly, the chicken tasteless. A memory surfaces, me at 16 clutching my science fair ribbon, blue and crisp from first place. I'd spent months on that robot, soaring until my room smelled of melted metal. "Look, Mom," I'd said, holding it up. "Nice, Gracie," she'd replied, already turning to frame Ethan's soccer trophy, a dented thing from a game he barely won. That night, I'd shoved the ribbon into my sock drawer, its edges curling by morning. "Grace, pass the rolls," Tom says, not looking up. I slide the basket over, my fingers brushing the cloth I chose for them. Ethan's still talking, something about a drone shoot, and Linda hangs on every word, her eyes gleaming like he's spun gold from air. "You're really making a name for yourself," she says, squeezing his arm. I swallow, the roast sticking in my throat. "It's a big step at work." I try again, louder. "Years ahead of schedule." Tom nods absently. "Sure, kid," and Linda's already asking Ethan about his next post. Their voices blur into a hum, and I stare at my plate, the gravy congealing into a dull sheen. I think of my office, the sage green walls, the nameplate I polished this morning. Here, that Grace feels like a ghost, fading under the weight of Ethan's light. I push my chair back, the scrape sharp against the hardwood. "I'll get the dishes," I say, though no one's listening. I stack the plates, their clatter a small rebellion, and carry them to the sink. The water runs hot over my hands, steam rising like the frustration I can't voice. Tonight, my victory sits cold in my stomach, another ribbon destined for a drawer. I turn my key in the lock, the click a quiet promise after the din of dinner. My arms ache from grocery bags, milk, bread, the coffee I grind myself, earned with a paycheck I stretched thin to keep this place mine. The door swings open, and I freeze. Ethan sprawled across my couch, boots propped on the armrest I reupholstered last fall. His duffel bag slumps by the coffee table, camera gear spilling out, lens caps scattered like breadcrumbs over the wood I sanded smooth. My one-bedroom smells of his cologne now, sharp and musky, drowning the cedar candle I lit last night to mark this as home. "Hey, sis," he says, not looking up from his phone. "Needed a place to crash. Landlord issues." His voice is casual, like he's borrowing a pen, not my life. I drop the bags by the door, the thud swallowed by the eggshell white walls I painted myself. "How long?" I ask, keeping my tone steady. "Week or two," he shrugs, thumbs tapping his screen. The bookshelf I built from salvaged wood tilts under the weight of his tripod, my novels shoved aside for his prints. I step into the kitchen, my phone buzzing as I unpack. Linda's name glows on the screen. "Grace, don't make a fuss," she says when I answer, her voice syrupy through the speaker. "Ethan's chasing his dreams. You've got that nice job, you can help him out." I grip the milk carton, its chill seeping into my palm. "He didn't ask," I say, but she's already cooing. "Be a good sister." The call ends, and I stare at the counter, the cedar scent gone, replaced by Ethan's intrusion. I think of my hatchback outside, forest green and paid off after 3 years of skipped lunches. Of the desk in my office, stained by hand, where my proposal waits to change everything. This apartment, every nail, every brushstroke, is mine, not a crash pad for Ethan's whims. I walk back to the living room, arms crossed. "You can't just show up like this," I say, louder than I mean to. He smirks. "Mom said it's fine. Relax, Grace." His lens glints under my lamp, a stranger in my space. The air feels heavy, like it's pressing me smaller. I remember 16, my robot's hum at the science fair, the ribbon I won while Ethan kicked a ball for applause. He'd crashed on my floor that summer, too. Just a few days, until my room smelled of his socks for weeks. I swallow the protest, clawing up my throat, the words I've never said. This is mine. Instead, I nod, retreating to my bedroom. The door shuts with a soft click, and I lean against it, the wood cool against my back. I light the cedar candle on my nightstand, its flame flickering against the chaos beyond. The scent fights to reclaim the air, a faint rebellion against Ethan's sprawl. My keys sit on the dresser, the hatchback's fob a small anchor. For now, I let the candle burn, its glow a promise I'm not ready to name. But the weight of his presence settles like dust, and I know it's only the first crack. I step out of my apartment building into the parking lot, gravel crunching under my sneakers as dusk paints the sky a bruised purple. The air bites at my knuckles, crisp with the promise of autumn, and I tug my jacket tighter. My hatchback waits in its usual spot, forest green, its paint still gleaming from the wash I gave it last weekend. 3 years of skipped lunches and extra shifts bought that car, every dent-free inch a quiet triumph. I fish my keys from my pocket, the fob's weight, a familiar comfort, and head toward the space I've claimed for 2 years. My steps slow. The spot is empty. I blink, gravel dust stinging my eyes as I scan the lot. The hatchback's gone, just a stretch of cracked asphalt where it should be, outlined by the fading lines I've parked within 100 times. My keys dangle uselessly in my hand, the jingle swallowed by the wind. A cold weight sinks into my stomach, sharp and sudden, like a blade I didn't see coming. I turn back to the building, Ethan's duffel bag flashing in my mind. His camera gear sprawled across my coffee table, his smirk when I asked how long he'd stay. My pulse hammers as I dial his number, the ring shrill against the quiet. "Yo, Grace," Ethan answers, voice lazy like he's mid-scroll. "What's up?" I grip the phone, my breath shallow. "Where's my car?" The line crackles, a pause stretching too long. "Oh, that," he says finally. Casual, as if he's misplaced a sock. "Sold it. Needed cash for a new lens. Big shoot coming up." The words hit like a slap, my fingers tightening until the keys bite into my palm. "You sold my car?" I repeat, each syllable sharp. He chuckles. "Yeah? Got a good deal. Chill, sis." My vision blurs, the empty space a void swallowing every overtime hour I logged to pay for it. I pace the gravel, the crunch underfoot a rhythm to my rising fury. "That was mine, Ethan. My name's on the title." He sighs, impatient now. "Family shares, right? I'll pay you back when this gig lands." I stop, the wind whipping my hair as I press the phone harder to my ear. "You had no right. Where's the money?" Another pause, then... "Already spent it. Lens was top tier." Before I can respond, Linda's voice cuts in, syrupy through the speaker. "Grace, don't overreact. It's just a car. Ethan's career is taking off." Tom grumbles in the background. "Family helps family, kid." The cold weight in my stomach hardens, spreading to my chest. I trace the outline of where my hatchback should be, its absence a physical ache. Every coffee I skipped, every weekend I spent at my desk, instead of out with friends, gone in a transaction they didn't even consult me on. "You stole from me," I say, my voice low, steady despite the tremor in my hands. Linda gasps. "We'd never..." But Tom interrupts, "You've got a good job. You'll get another." The call ends with a click, leaving me staring at the empty lot, rage building like a storm I've held back too long. I think of my office, the nameplate I polished, the proposal I poured myself into. Then 16, my robots hum at the science fair, the ribbon I won while Ethan's soccer games got cheers. They've always taken, assuming I'd bend. I clench my fists, the keys digging deeper, a faint sting grounding me. The hatchback wasn't just a car, it was mine, a line they crossed without blinking. I turn back to the building, gravel crunching louder now, each step a promise I'm not sure I can name yet. The wind howls, but it's the silence of their betrayal that deafens me. I unlock my apartment door, the click drowned by exhaustion after a 4-day work trip. My suitcase drags behind me, wheels scraping the hardwood I polished myself. The conference was a blur of applause. My proposal earned a standing ovation, whispers of corner office, trailing me to the airport. I'd lit the cedar candle before I left, imagining its scent welcoming me home. Instead, the air hits me thick with sweat and unfamiliar perfume, my eggshell white walls vibrating with bass from a speaker I don't own. I step inside, and my stomach drops. Ethan's turned my living room into a studio. Tripods lean against my bookshelf, its novels toppled to make room for his prints. Models, 3 of them, all sharp cheekbones and bored expressions, pose against my thrift store curtains, their heels scuffing the floor I refinished. A stranger adjusts lights near my desk, cables snaking over the wood I stained. Takeout containers litter my counter, soy sauce staining the edge where I grind my coffee. Ethan stands in the center, camera clicking, his grin wide as he calls, "Tilt your head, babe." My suitcase slips from my hand, thudding against the hardwood. "Ethan," I say, voice cutting through the noise. He glances over, barely pausing. "Hey, Grace, you're back. Relax, it's just a shoot for my portfolio." The speaker thumps louder, and a model adjusts her pose, knocking my lamp askew. I cross the room, my sneakers silent against the chaos. "What is this?" I gesture to the mess, my space, my sanctuary overrun. He shrugs, clicking another shot. "Mom and Dad said I could stay, needed a spot for this gig." His lens glints, catching the light I hung myself. I clench my jaw, the memory of my car's empty space flashing hot. "You sold my car and now this?" My voice rises, steady but edged. He lowers the camera, smirking. "Chill, sis. It's temporary." The stranger with the lights mutters, "5 minutes, man," and Ethan waves him off, turning back to the models. I step closer, the perfume choking me now. "You don't get to decide what's temporary in my home." He rolls his eyes. "Call Mom if you're mad." She okayed it. I grab my phone, fingers trembling as I dial Linda. She answers, voice syrupy as ever. "Grace, honey, what's wrong?" The bass pulses behind me, a heartbeat I didn't invite. "Ethan's taken over my apartment. He sold my car, and now he's..." She cuts me off. "Don't be selfish. He needs this for his career." Tom's voice rumbles through, "You're fine, kid. Let him work." The line goes dead, and I stare at the screen, the words a weight I've carried too long. Something snaps, clean and final, like a wire I've soldered one too many times. I turn to Ethan, my suitcase still by the door. "Get out," I say, loud enough to halt the shoot. The models pause, the stranger freezes, but Ethan laughs. "You're kidding." I grab his duffel from the couch, the zipper half open, and toss it into the hall. It lands with a thud, spilling socks I don't want to touch. "Out! Now!" My voice is ice, steady as the blueprints I draft. He steps closer, camera dangling. "Mom and Dad said..." "I don't care what they said. This is my home. Leave." The room stills, the bass the only sound until I stride to the speaker and yank its cord. Silence crashes in, clean and untainted. Ethan's smirk fades, replaced by a scowl. "You're insane." I point to the door, arm rigid. "Take your gear and go." The models shift, murmuring, but I don't flinch. He grabs his tripod, muttering, "Fine, psycho," and gestures to the crew. They shuffle out, dragging lights and cables, heels clicking past his duffel. The door slams behind them, and I slide the deadbolt. The click, a gunshot in the quiet. My hands steady as I survey the wreckage, my lamp crooked, my books scattered, my counter stained. I think of 16, hiding my ribbon while Ethan's trophy shone. Of my car, sold without a word. This is the line they've crossed too far. I light the cedar candle, its flame flickering against the chaos they left. The scent rises, reclaiming the air, and I breathe deep, my first full breath in weeks. The weight lifts, replaced by a resolve I can finally name. I sit across from Ms. Ellen Harrow in her office, the steel gray carpet muffling my footsteps as I slide a manila folder across her desk. The faint hum of a printer buzzes behind stacks of files, and the air smells of ink and old coffee. Sharp, utilitarian, like the resolve hardening in my chest. My evidence spills from the folder. Bank statements circled in red. The car title with my name bolded. Ethan's Instagram posts flaunting his new lens time-stamped the day after the sale. I've kept these records since 16. Every loan, every family favor that never came back. Once a plea for worth, now a weapon. Ms. Harrow adjusts her glasses, her brow lifting as she flips through. "This is theft, plain and simple," she says, her voice crisp, cutting through the hum. She holds up the title, my signature stark against the paper. Sole ownership, no authority to sell. I nod, my hands steady on the chair's arms, the wood cool under my palms. "They didn't think I'd fight," I say, the words solid, no tremor left. She taps the Instagram screenshot. Ethan's caption, "New gear, new me," paired with a lens worth my car's value. "Most clients bring me tears and scraps," she says. "You've built a case file that'd shame a paralegal." A faint smile tugs at my lips, preparation my armor since the science fair days. My phone buzzes in my pocket, Linda's name flashing. I mute it, the vibration a dull pulse against my thigh. "They'll call it a misunderstanding," I say, picturing her syrupy tone, Tom's gruff defense. Ms. Harrow leans forward, her pen poised. "We'll sue for restitution, 20,000 plus damages. Eviction order 2, if he steps foot in your apartment again." Her plan unfolds like a blueprint, precise and unyielding, mirroring the proposals I draft at work. I think of my hatchback's empty space, the photo shoot chaos in my home, lines they crossed, assuming I'd bend. The folder sits between us, years of their taking laid bare. At 16, I'd logged the emergency cash they borrowed for Ethan's soccer camp, never repaid. At 25, the rent I covered when he needed a studio, forgotten by them. Now, my car, my independence, sold without a word. I want it all documented, I say, my voice low but firm. Every penny. Ms. Harrow nods, jotting notes. "They'll learn consequences," she says, and I feel the weight shift, not gone, but lighter, a burden I'm finally handing back. I stand, the chair scraping softly, and tuck my phone deeper in my pocket. Linda's text glows unread. "You're breaking our hearts, Grace." I leave it there, unanswered, as I step into the hall. The door clicks shut, and I breathe the stale office air, my spine straight. This isn't about revenge. It's about what's mine. The robot's ribbon, hidden in my drawer, flickers in my mind. This time, I won't shrink. I sit beside Ms. Harrow in the courtroom, the polished wood benches cool against my legs as Judge Martin Powell peers over his glasses. My family huddles across the aisle, Linda's eyes puffy, Tom's suit jacket rumpled, Ethan scrolling his phone like this is a waiting room. The gavel rests on the bench, a promise I've built toward, and the air hums with tension, sharp as solder smoke. Ms. Harrow clicks the projector, my father's text looming large. "We sold your car. Ethan needed the money more." 12 words, casual theft bared to the room. I watch Tom shift, tugging his collar, while Linda stares at her lap. "Miss Harper has documented years of financial exploitation," Ms. Harrow states, her voice steady, slicing through the quiet. The screen flashes bank statements, $20,000 withdrawn the day after my car vanished. Then Ethan's posts, his lens gleaming beside captions of triumph. My title follows, my name inked alone, no co-signers. Judge Powell's frown deepens, his pen scratching notes as Linda whispers to Tom, her hands twisting a tissue. Ethan glares at me, his indignation a mirror to the betrayal I've carried since 16. My robot's ribbon dimmed by his trophy's shine. Their attorney stammers, "Family arrangements, Your Honor, misunderstandings." His words wilt under my evidence, years of loans never repaid, my car's value in black and white. I sit still, hands folded, the sage green of my office walls, a distant anchor. Ms. Harrow clicks again. Ethan's lens, my loss framed in likes and filters. Judge Powell removes his glasses, fixing my parents with a stare. This is unauthorized sale of property and exploitation, he says, his voice a blade. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. 6 words, heavy as the deadbolt, I slid after Ethan left. Linda gasps, "We'll lose the house!" loud enough to echo, her tissue shredding in her grip. Tom's face pales, his hand gripping the bench. Defendants to pay $20,000 restitution, plus $10,000 damages and legal fees, Judge Powell continues, the gavel poised. I meet Ethan's glare, then Linda's pleading eyes, unflinching. You made this choice, I say, my voice calm, cutting through their murmurs. The gavel cracks, a sound like my apartment door locking, and the room stills. Justice tastes metallic, not sweet, but necessary, a wound stanched at last. I stand as Ms. Harrow gathers her files, the bench's edge pressing my thighs. Linda reaches for me. Grace, we're family. But I step past, her perfume fading behind me. Tom mutters, think about us, his voice softer now, cajoling. I don't look back. The courtroom doors swing shut, and I walk the marble hall, my heels clicking with purpose. The house where Ethan's C-average parties outshone my scholarships will sell. Symmetry I didn't seek. My hands are steady, the weight of their dismissal lifting with each step. I stand in my apartment, the hardwood gleaming beneath restored order, my books realigned on the shelf I built, the counter wiped clean of Ethan's stains. Sunlight streams through the window, catching the silver sedan parked below, its keys new in my pocket. The cedar candle flickers on my desk, its scent weaving through the air I've reclaimed. My nameplate, Grace Harper, lead engineer, sits beside my laptop, brass glinting as I draft a speech for next week's conference. My name's bolded in the program, a line they can't erase. I sip coffee from a mug I chose for its weight, the ceramic warm against my palms. My phone rests silent, no missed calls, no texts begging forgiveness. Linda's last message, "You're breaking us," deleted with the rest. Ethan, Tom, gone in 3 taps. Each press lightened the load I've carried since 16, when my robots' hum faded under their cheers for Ethan's games. The sunlight casts rectangles across my floor, unbroken by their shadows, and I breathe deep, lungs full for the first time in years. The apartment feels different because I do. The sage green walls I painted, the desk I stained, they're mine, not a stage for their taking. I think of the courtroom, the gavel's crack sealing a chapter I didn't start. The for sale sign swings at their house now, a moving truck swallowing their past while I drive forward. Symmetry, not triumph, marks the end, my 2-bedroom piece mirrored in their downsized reality. I shut my laptop, the speech half written, and trace the nameplate's edge. Outside, the city hums, indifferent to their absence. Inside, the only sound is my breathing. Steady, free, a rhythm I've earned. The candle's flame dances, its glow a quiet promise, and I let it burn. No ribbons hide in drawers here, no victories dim under borrowed light. I step to the window, the sedan's silver a glint of what's mine, and smile. Small, real, unshared. The Texas sun beat down mercilessly that afternoon, turning the air above our cracked driveway into a shimmering haze, a cruel mirage of the life I thought I'd built. I stood in our cramped kitchen, the ancient window unit rattling like a dying beast against the oppressive heat, its pitiful stream of cool air barely brushing my sweat-dampened skin. The linoleum floor clung to my bare feet, sticky with years of spilled coffee and unspoken promises, as if it knew what I was about to discover and wanted to hold me there, trapped in the moment before everything changed. At 32, I, Celestia Ford, was just another small-town Texas girl, caught in the rhythms of a life I'd carved out with James over a decade of marriage. But that day, the rhythm broke. I clutched my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, the plastic edges digging into my palm as I stared at the screen. The message glowed there, undeniable. A dagger slipped between the ribs of my trust. Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. Same spot. It wasn't for me. His wife of 10 years, the woman who'd kissed him goodbye every morning as he stumbled in from the night shift. The scent of Pinewood Mall's stale corridors still clinging to his uniform. No, it was for her. Lauren Hayes, the perky PE teacher from the high school, all bright smiles and toned legs. The kind of woman who'd never know the weight of scanning groceries for 8 hours under fluorescent lights. My breath hitched, the air too thick to swallow, tasting of dust and betrayal. Outside, the cicadas screamed their endless chorus, a soundtrack to the chaos spiraling in my chest. The kitchen smelled of last night's fried chicken, a greasy ghost of the normalcy I'd clung to, mingling with the faint rot of roses wilting in a vase on the counter. Roses I'd picked from our backyard, thinking they'd brighten the monotony. How naive I'd been. 10 years with James flashed before me, his tired grin after a long shift, the way he'd hum off key to the radio, the quiet nights we'd spent dreaming of a future that now felt like a lie. My hands trembled, the phone slipping slightly in my grip. I wanted to scream, to hurl it against the wall and watch it shatter like my illusions, but something colder took root instead, a bitter seed of rage, sprouting fast in the suffocating heat. This wasn't just a mistake, this was a choice, his choice, and I'd make him regret it. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, or so I'd believed. Mornings started early, the distant rumble of oil rigs vibrating through the dawn as I brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. I'd lean over James as he slumped into the kitchen, his security guard uniform rumpled, the scent of sweat and cheap mall food lingering on him like a second skin. I'd kiss his forehead, tasting salt and exhaustion, and he'd mumble something about rowdy teens at Pinewood Mall before collapsing into bed. Then I'd pull on my save-and-shop apron, the polyester scratching my neck, and head out into the sun-bleached streets of our little town, where everyone knew your name and your business. At the store, my hands moved mechanically over cans of soup, boxes of cereal, packs of ground beef, the scanner's beep a metronome to my days. I'd chat with Mrs. Dawson about her arthritis, nod at Pete from the tire shop as he griped about the heat, slip an extra coupon to Jenny, the single mom with tired eyes and 3 kids tugging at her hem. Back home, James would wake by noon and we'd fall into our quiet dance. Dinner on the couch, reruns of old sitcoms, the occasional barbecue with neighbors who'd become family. Fridays were sacred, high school football under the rickety bleachers, cheering for the Dawson boy or the Riley twins, the air thick with popcorn and pride. It wasn't much, but it was steady, a life stitched together with small joys and smaller fights. I'd always thought we were happy. James with his steady hands and slow smiles, me with my knack for stretching a dollar and keeping the peace. We weren't rich. Hell, we barely scraped by some months, but we had each other, our rescue dog Scout, a mortgage on a house with peeling paint and a roof that leaked when the storms rolled in. The town wrapped around us like a worn quilt, familiar and warm, its oil rigs and dusty fields a constant hum in the background. I'd never questioned it, never thought to look beneath the surface. But now, standing in that kitchen with the phone burning a hole in my hand, I saw the cracks, hairline fractures in the life I'd loved, widening with every heartbeat into a chasm I couldn't unsee. Dusk settled over the house, the heat unrelenting even as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. I hadn't moved from the kitchen, my feet still glued to that sticky linoleum, the phone now a dead weight on the counter. The window unit wheezed its last gasps, surrendering to the evening's humidity, and the air hung heavy, pressing against my chest like a physical thing. Outside, The driveway glowed faintly, the cracked asphalt a map of every step James and I had taken together. 10 years of coming and going, of building something I'd thought was real. Now it mocked me, each fissure a silent accusation. My mind churned, a storm of dust devils swirling across the drought-stricken fields of my thoughts. How long had this been going on? How many nights had he worked late, his excuses piling up like the grease-stained rags in his toolbox? I pictured Lauren's laugh, high and bright, the kind that turned heads, and imagined it echoing in some shadowed corner of the mall. James's hands on her, his lips where mine should have been. The image clawed at me, sharp and visceral, and I wanted to scream, to storm out to Pinewood Mall, right then and there, drag him home by his collar, and unleash a decade's worth of fury. I wanted to throw the coffee pot, the vase of dying roses, anything to break the silence swallowing me whole. But something stopped me. A small, cunning voice slithered through the chaos, cold as the sweat trickling down my spine. Wait, watch, plan. My breath steadied, the rage congealing into something harder, something I could hold on to. Confronting him now would be too easy. He'd stammer, lie, maybe even cry, and I'd be left with nothing but the wreckage. No, I needed more. I needed him to feel this, to taste the bitterness I was choking on. The floor seemed to release me then, my soul's peeling free, as if it understood I wasn't running. Not yet. I'd stay, I'd pretend, I'd let the lie fester a little longer. My hands steadied, the tremble giving way to purpose. In that stifling kitchen, with the cicadas droning and the night pressing in, I made a choice. James would pay, and I'd be the one to write the ending. The seed of rage had taken root, and I'd water it with patience until it bloomed into something he'd never see coming. The days after the discovery blurred into a suffocating charade, each one a test of my newfound resolve. I moved through our home like a ghost, the air thick with humidity and the lie I now lived. Mornings began as they always had, the coffee pot gurgling, filling the kitchen with its bitter aroma, as James shuffled in from his night shift at Pinewood Mall. I'd pack his lunch, ham sandwiches with extra mustard, just the way he liked them, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. I'd kiss his rough cheek, the stubble scratching my lips, and force a smile as he grumbled about a broken vending machine or a loitering kid. He'd collapse into bed, oblivious, while I slipped into my save-and-shop apron and headed to work, the Texas sun already searing the cracked streets outside. At the store, I scanned groceries with mechanical precision, nodding at Mrs. Dawson's chatter about her garden, slipping Jenny an extra coupon when her kids weren't looking. But my ears strained for whispers, my eyes darted for clues. I caught fragments, Lauren's name dropped casually by a coworker, a knowing glance between two moms in aisle 5, and pieced them together, like shards of broken glass. Each one cut deeper, fueling the fire I kept banked beneath my placid mask. Nights were the hardest. James sprawled beside me, his steady breathing a mockery of the trust he'd shattered. I'd lie awake, the scent of his sweat mingling with the faint jasmine drifting through the open window, my mind racing with questions I couldn't voice yet. Guilt flickered sometimes. Memories of our courthouse wedding, Scout's wagging tail, when we brought him home. But the text message burned brighter. Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. That was my anchor, my justification. I wasn't destroying us. He already had. And so I played the part, biding my time, waiting for the moment to strike. It was a Saturday cookout at the Hendersons that handed me my weapon. The air buzzed with cicadas and the tang of grilled burgers, neighbors milling around with solo cups and sunburned shoulders. I stood near the picnic table, a warm soda sweating in my hand, when I saw James across the yard, polishing his prized possession, a 1967 Chevy Impala, its faded black paint gleaming under his careful strokes. He'd inherited it from his dad, spent hours tinkering in the garage, called it his baby. The gleam in his eye as he buffed the hood was the same look he used to give me, back when I believed in us. Now it was a symbol of his pride, his independence, everything he thought he could keep while tossing me aside. A cold smile curled my lips, unnoticed in the chatter around me. The idea hit like lightning. I'd take that car from him, ruin it the way he'd ruined us. Not with a sledgehammer, that'd be too quick, too loud. No, it'd be slow, deliberate, a poison seeping into the heart of what he loved most. I could almost taste the satisfaction, sharp and metallic, cutting through the sticky sweetness of jasmine climbing the fence nearby. The Impala wasn't just metal and rubber to James. It was his identity, his manhood on four wheels. Destroying it would be more than revenge, it'd be justice. I set my soda down, the plan solidifying as I watched him laugh with Mr. Henderson, oblivious to the storm brewing in me. The heat pressed against my skin, but for the first time in weeks, I felt alive, a predator sizing up its prey. He'd never see it coming. That night, I began. The garage was a shadowed cave when I slipped out, the air thick with the smell of motor oil and old rubber, laced with the faint sweetness of jasmine from beyond the fence. James slept upstairs, his snores a distant rumble, while Scout dozed by the back door, oblivious to my mission. I carried a small jar of sugar, ordinary, innocent-looking, its grains glinting in the moonlight filtering through the dusty window. My hands trembled as I unscrewed the Impala's gas cap, the metal cool against my skin. I tipped the jar, a thin stream pouring into the tank, not enough to kill it outright, but enough to start the rot. The engine would clog over time, a slow death by sweetness, a fitting end for his betrayal. For weeks I kept it up, sneaking out when James was asleep or at work. Each trip was a battle. Part of me screamed to stop, to confess, to salvage what we'd had, our first dance under string lights, the way he'd held me when Mom died. But then I'd see Lauren's name in my mind, hear her laugh in my nightmares, and the darker voice took over. He deserves this. My hand steadied with every pour, the tremble fading into resolve. The Impala's purr turned rougher, a sickly rattle creeping in. James noticed, spent hours under the hood, his brow furrowed in confusion, grease smearing his cheeks. I can fix her myself, he'd insist when I suggested a mechanic. Pride blinding him to the truth. I'd nod, play the supportive wife, all the while knowing the sugar was building up, a silent saboteur he'd never suspect. The garage became my battlefield, the scent of oil and sugar my war paint. I was winning, inch by inch, and the satisfaction was a bitter balm to the ache he'd left in me. The breaking point came on a sweltering afternoon at Save and Shop, the kind where the heat seeped into your bones and made every breath a chore. I stood at my register, scanning items on autopilot, ice cream melting in carts, sunscreen tubes rolling across the belt. When two women rolled up, their voices low but sharp. "Did you hear about James and Lauren?" one whispered, leaning close as she unloaded popsicles. "They're planning a getaway to Austin this weekend, that new resort." My hands froze over the barcode scanner, the beep cutting off mid-note. A weekend getaway. The audacity of it churned my stomach, acid rising in my throat. Austin, hours away, a secret escape while I played the fool at home. I finished their transaction in a daze, my smile plastered on, but my mind raced. The drive home was a blur of sun-baked streets and waving neighbors I barely registered. When I pulled into the driveway, the Impala sat there, gleaming in the late afternoon sun, a taunting monument to his lies. That night, after James left for his shift, I made my move. The garage welcomed me with its familiar embrace, oil, rubber, the faint sweetness of my vengeance. This time I didn't hold back. I grabbed a full bag of sugar from the pantry, tore it open, and emptied it into the tank, my hands shaking with a mix of anticipation and fear. The grains rasped against the metal, a sound like justice settling into place. Doubt flickered as I screwed the cap back on. Was I really doing this? But the memory of their whispered plans snuffed it out. This wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about everything he'd taken from me. The air thickened around me, heavy with the promise of reckoning. And I knew there was no turning back. Morning broke hot and heavy, the kind of day where the horizon wavered like a lie about to collapse. I woke early, stomach knotted, the weight of last night's sabotage pressing against my ribs. From the bedroom window, I heard James in the garage, cursing as he turned the key in the Impala. The engine sputtered, coughed, refused to catch, a death rattle I'd orchestrated. "Celestia," he called, voice tinged with frustration. "Can you come here for a sec?" I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and plastered on a concerned frown before stepping out. The garage was already stifling, the air sharp with burning oil and a sickly sweet undertone. James stood by the open hood, grease streaking his forehead, his eyes darting between me and his dying car. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a black smear. "I don't know. She won't start. We're supposed to leave for Austin in an hour." My heart thudded, but I kept my face soft, innocent. "Austin?" I tilted my head, letting the word hang. "I thought you were working this weekend." His face paled, eyes flicking away from mine. There's a security conference, last-minute thing. Didn't I mention it?" The lie was flimsy, pathetic, and I saw the panic bloom in him. I dropped the pretense, my voice turning cold as the sweat on my skin. "No, you didn't. Just like you didn't mention Lauren." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the hiss of steam from the engine. James's mouth opened, closed, no words coming out. I stepped closer, the heat of the garage wrapping around us like a noose. "I know about your little affair," I said, each syllable a blade. "Your weekend getaway, it's not happening, not in this car." Confusion twisted his features, then horror as a loud pop erupted from the hood, steam billowing with the acrid stench of burnt sugar. You destroyed my car?" he whispered, voice breaking. "And you destroyed our marriage," I shot back, my smile cold, humorless. "I'd say we're even." Tires crunched on the driveway, and I turned to see Lauren's red sedan pull up. She stepped out, confusion clouding her face as she took in the scene. James by the smoking Impala, me with arms crossed. "James, what's going on? I thought we were—" Her voice faltered as she registered me, the tension thick enough to choke on. A bitter laugh escaped me. "Perfect timing," I said, my gaze shifting between them. "Why don't you tell her, James? Tell her how your plans just went up in smoke? Literally?" Lauren's hand flew to her mouth, but I cut her off before she could speak. "Save it. I'm not interested. You two deserve each other." I turned on my heel, the slam of the front door behind me echoing like a gunshot. Inside, I leaned against the wall, the weight lifting off my shoulders. The lies, the pretending, it was over. I'd torn it all down, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. The confrontation's echo still rang in my ears as I moved through the house, gathering what mattered. Clothes, my laptop, Scout's leash. James's voice lingered outside, pleading with Lauren, but I shut it out, focusing on the weight of my suitcase, the soft whine Scout let out as he watched me pack. I didn't look at the family photos on the walls, their smiles now relics of a life I'd outgrown. With Scout beside me, I stepped into the late summer heat, loaded him into my beat-up sedan, and pulled away. In the rear-view mirror, the house shrank, the Impala a smoking heap beside it, and the town blurred into a memory I was ready to leave behind. The open road stretched before me, vast Texas plains sprawling under a sky streaked with gold and pink. Scout's head popped out the window, ears flapping in the breeze. and I let the wind tousle my hair, drying the tears I hadn't realized were falling. I drove without a destination, letting instinct guide me, the hum of the engine a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. As twilight deepened, a flickering neon sign caught my eye. Vacancy, and I pulled into a roadside motel, its peeling paint and sagging roof a mirror to my exhaustion. Inside, the room was basic, the bed creaking under me as I sat, Scout curling up close. The enormity of what I'd done hit then. Tears flowed freely, a cathartic release of months of pain. I'd burned my old life to the ground, but in its ashes, I felt the first stirrings of freedom. With Scout's warmth against me, I breathed deep, ready for whatever came next. The next morning, I made a call I hadn't in years. Aunt Clara's voice crackled through the phone, warm and surprised, turning soft as I spilled my story. James, Lauren, the Impala. "Come to Corpus Christi, honey," she said without hesitation. "Bring that pup too." By noon, Scout and I were on the road again, the Gulf's salty breeze greeting us as we pulled into her driveway that evening. Aunt Clara waited on the porch, arms wide, her lavender perfume wrapping me in a hug that felt like home. "Welcome, sugar," she murmured, kneeling to scratch Scout's ears as he wagged with delight. Her spare room became my sanctuary, its bare walls a blank slate I'd soon fill. The coastal air was lighter than the Texas heat I'd left, carrying the promise of renewal. I found a job at a local bookstore, trading the Save-and-Shop's bustle for quiet shelves and the rustle of pages. Evenings, I'd sit with Aunt Clara on her porch, watching the sun dip into the Gulf, its hues painting the sky in possibilities. We'd talk, her sharing stories of her youth, me unraveling the knot of my marriage bit by bit. "You're stronger than you know," she'd say, her eyes twinkling in the fading light. Scout would sprawl at my feet, the rhythm of the waves a steady pulse beneath our words. For the first time in months, I felt safe, the weight of pretense gone. This wasn't just shelter, it was a beginning. One day at the bookstore, a publisher's rep scouted for a signing and lingered to chat. "You've got a story in you," she said, handing me her card. "Real life makes the best fiction." That night, with Scout snoring beside me, I opened my laptop and let it pour out. Betrayal, revenge, the sugar in the tank, all of it. My fingers flew, words spilling like the Gulf's tides, turning pain into something I could hold, shape, own. Aunt Clara read my drafts, her encouragement a lifeline through sleepless nights. Rejections piled up, form letters, polite no's, but I revised, rewrote, persisted. In May 2025, an email arrived. A small press wanted my book. The day it hit shelves, I stood in the bookstore. My name on the cover, a testament to survival. Readers came, women like me, their letters thanking me for voicing their struggles. I spoke at book clubs, campuses, my story rippling beyond Corpus Christi. Writing hadn't just healed me. It had given me a voice, a purpose. The ocean outside Aunt Clara's window stretched endless, mirroring the potential I'd claimed. I wasn't just Celestia Ford, betrayed wife. I was an author, a woman who'd turned ashes into ink. Summer 2025 brought more than book sales. At an Austin conference, ironic given its past, I spoke on a panel, my confidence steady despite the city's ghosts. During a coffee break, I met Ethan Sullivan, a 38-year-old literature professor, with warm hazel eyes and a notebook spilling papers. We talked books, then life, his quiet interest a balm to my guarded heart. Back home, the divorce finalized. A quiet note from my lawyer, less a wound than a closed chapter. Aunt Clara and I celebrated with a beach bonfire, flames dancing against the dark sky as she toasted, "To new beginnings." I added, "and unexpected blessings," clinking my glass to hers. Ethan and I emailed, then called, our talks deepening. My second book took shape, my calendar filling with speaking gigs. Success wasn't just survival, It was thriving. The Gulf's horizon whispered of more to come, and I listened. Fall brought Ethan to Corpus Christi for a conference, and he texted, "Dinner if you're free?" Aunt Clara's words cut through my hesitation. "Don't let fear hold you back." And I said yes. We met at a seafood spot by the bay, his smile easing my nerves over grilled snapper and wine. Conversation flowed. Childhoods, dreams, my past laid bare. He listened, no judgment, just understanding. After, we walked the beach, moonlight silvering the waves, his hand finding mine. I didn't pull away. It felt right. "You're incredible," he said, stopping to face me. "Your strength, your talent. I've never met anyone like you." Warmth flooded me, a joy I'd thought lost. I squeezed his hand, smiling. "You're pretty incredible, too." The pain of James didn't define me anymore. Just a chapter, not the book. With Ethan, my career, Aunt Clara, and Scout, I was ready for more. Driving home under a starlit sky, I felt peace settle in. Revenge was a memory. This was my story now. Resilience, love, a life on my terms. Tomorrow, I'd write again, eager for the pages ahead.